Hello everyone. If you want to go to my free course, type henry-ward.co.uk into Google, then go to Henry Ward Trading, and then this here is my free course. Click on Start Today. If you want to go on to the webinars that I do every Sunday and every Wednesday, click on Trading Academy and then click on Start Today. So this is the Trading Academy. This is the full training, the webinars, direct access to me, everything that you want. So on the Nasdaq, we are today's bar. Now today's bar we can't really look at because it's today's bar. Now what we can do is we can look at the smaller time frame, and you will see a little bit of a rejection on the 4 hour on that particular bar. So if we look at this, we have 1, 2, and this is the third touch on the likes of the 4 hour. So we've had a selling bar coming down, and then we've had the buyers come in for the last 4 hours. Now it'll be interesting to see what happens to the market when it actually opens up. But we do have an overall downtrend. It seems to be bouncing off this sort of trend line. So we have a sort of a descending triangle going on here. So you would expect it to break this. Now whether it'll break and retest or not is a different matter, or whether it will just bounce up here and then have another go at it. That's the question we're sort of going to have at the minute. But for all intents and purposes, we would expect it to be broken at some point. Trend looking to drop and to continue dropping. I don't see any reason why that's going to stop there. I'd expect it to continue going down. If we look at it historically, the next level there is at the 1. Now with the S&P 500, we're at a much better level. So the level here on the S&P 500 is much cleaner. So we've had 1, 2, and this now is the third rejection. Now the question is that are we confident enough that that's going to be the point that it turns? Are we happy enough that that's the point where it's going to turn? And at the present moment in time, yes, we do. But to what end? If we have a look at it, we have a really big trend line coming down along here, and every time it hits this trend line, it drops. So the question is, are we going to have a small bounce and then a break to the downside on this? And if that happens, we would expect to see this floor here broken. Now, I do expect that to happen. I expect the floor to be broken, and this here is the next sort of level there. This one at 4048. That'll be the next area where I'd expect this market to potentially drop down to. But at the moment, should we be bullish or should we be bearish on this? Or sorry, that's a wrong question because the overall momentum is down here, so we're bearish on it. So my question is, should we be buying at this level, or do we wait for a break and retest? Stay out of it. Well, that actually could be a good. That could be a good idea. We're back up to there. So are we looking to buy here, or are we waiting for the break and then retest? In your opinion? Well, there's very little historical. It's that there, look. 1, 2, 3. Those 3 touches there where it's broken before. Okay, so for me as a trader, the way I trade, I'd be looking for a break and retest there. But there will be a lot of people who would have taken that as a limit order there, entry on the level, stop loss below there, and then pop up. Okay, so there is a potential short-term trade to the upside there, but again, it wouldn't be something that I would take. So look, we talked about it here the last time. So if I drop down to the 4 hour, we talked about it here. Look, we had our entry there, stop loss here, it's popped back up, and you would have got your 3-to-1 at that particular point very easily, probably even a 4-to-1. Now look, pops back down again. So if I grab this and move it over, entry on that red bar, stop loss just below it. Now, the problem is that the perfect place for a stop loss is below there. So that's the perfect place for it. So that's where it would be, underneath that. Absolutely, it's so volatile. Could be kicked out overnight. Absolutely, of course you could. But that's depends on what type of trader you are. If you're someone who's in and out of the market very, very quickly, that's the type of trade you're looking at. If you're someone who's a long-term trader, you just stick back and just stay away from it. Or short market when it hits there. So we're looking for the break and retest there. So it's not something that I would be looking to trade at the moment. But again, let's see. The Dow is probably the least of the three of them that I'd be looking to trade. The Dow, we've had pretty big wild spikes and troughs, so it's not something that I'd be looking to trade out of the three of them. Now, some of them I did take a trade on, and last night was the place where I took it. I took it here on the German DAX short. Okay, so I took a trade on the German DAX short. Now the trade started going today in our favor, it was quite nicely, and has retraced back at the moment, and we're slightly down on it. So to talk you through this trade here, so the overall momentum is down, and when I drop down to the 4 hour, we have a triple top there. So the idea is that our stop loss goes above that and our entry below it. So we did have a momentum down to the downside, and now look, it's up for pop-up. So let's have a quick look at that trade on eToro, where we actually placed it. So the idea is on this particular trade, yeah, my internet is volatile, yeah. But this is the work internet. It should be good. So there's my stop loss. And then there is my entry. So the entry was at 13,820, and the stop loss is up there at 14133.62. So my stop loss is above this level. So as you can see, there's the high, and there's the high. So my stop loss is above it. So what we're looking for is for this phase 2 to finish, and then the phase 1 now to kick on and make a lower low. So that's the idea behind it. Absolutely. So we may be kicked out of this trade. Absolutely. So Russia and Ukraine back in discussions. So why are you careful with your take profit level? So the idea of the take profit is having a 3-to-1. So my take profit is down here. But my stop loss is fairly safe because I don't want to put my stop loss outside here, because if this breaks this here, this could turn into an uptrend. So the idea is I don't want to be in this. So if that does that, that's a complete change of trend, isn't it? It's a complete change of direction. Also, I'm using leverage. So I'm using the max leverage, what is it, 20-to-1? that I can get on this platform. So the idea is I'm risking 100 quid between my stop loss and my entry. So if this pops up, worst case scenario, I lose £100 or 100 US dollar. If this drops down to here, then I make 300. So that's the idea of using leverage. So we have it in our favor, that I know what's the story is. I know what's going to happen if all of a sudden the market jumps in the opposite direction. So the idea is make sure your stop loss is in an area that you're happy with. It's in an area that's out of the way. And then let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with that. So that's what's going on here. If we look at, say, the daily chart again, back over onto the daily. So as we know, the overall momentum is down. The overall momentum's down. We've had a decent pullback, and we're now looking for this to continue going again. So that's the theory behind it. Whether it happens or not is a different thing, but that's the theory behind it. We're also sort of back into that area there, previous highs here. Let's see if the market drops in our favor, or whether this good news about the talks is going to derail us and turn this into a stop for us. Now the French CAC is very similar, but for me it is more sideways. I don't have hopes for talks. No one has hopes for talks. No one has a. Yeah, it's not something we expect to happen, but hopefully look, I would rather lose my 100 quid and then actually peace rather than winning 300 quid and war continues, putting it into perspective like that. But again, do we think it will happen? No, I don't. So with the likes of the French CAC, we're here in this one, we're too flat. It's not something, the setup here is not very good, so it's not something I'm looking to take on this particular scenario here. It's not a good enough setup for me. The UK 100, we actually took this on the smaller time frame as well, and we got stopped out. So we took this trade here, it went down in our favor, and then we got stopped out on that high there. This bar stopped us out, which massively annoyingly, but so we've taken a similar trade on the likes of the German DAX again, but the German DAX has a triple top, where the likes of this one has only had a double top at the present moment. So that's what I wanted to go through with you guys today. Is there anything you guys want me to go through? Is there anything that you guys would rather? And while you guys are putting that in the chat group, so you want to go through FX. Let's have a quick look. So Aussie JPY, NZD JPY. So we've had a little bit of momentum on Aussie dollar to the upside. We have a little level here as well. So if I move that up at that particular point, pop this up 1, 2, 3 touches. And we haven't quite hit that there. And then again, we've now had this phase 2. So it's nicely come back into an area. Now, the question is, though, is this a trade that we'd be looking to take? Let me have a quick look. The problem with FX is that if you go looking hard enough, you will find the areas. So there's a 1, 2, 3 touches there, but look, it's broken, 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 bounced, broken, and we're now back at that area. So we're now back at that area. Now, if the bar finishes like this, so if the daily bar finishes like that, is there a trade along on this at this present moment? Is there a trade along there? So if we get a pullback on this one here, is that a trade along? Is that something we're looking to take? Now, one of the things with foreign exchange is that my rules are much, much stricter with foreign exchange than they are with stocks. Obviously, at the minute, likes of times like now, I'm not trading stocks massively. It's sort of stay away from them till they actually settle down, and then we'll go back and trade them. But because this is a time of change with the likes of stocks, I've sort of stayed away from. But FX is like this all the time. So FX is always in a sideways market. There's always these. I'm really sorry, guys. The internet is playing silly buggers. So at the present moment, this is the trade. So the entry is there and the stop loss is here. At the moment, we're risking 0.91. So just say 1%. So my take profit there. So there's the previous high. So that's the top of that there. So that's the previous high, which means then for it to hit a previous high, I only have 0.74. Okay. Yes, you could argue that this is making higher highs. Absolutely, it is making higher highs. But you could also argue there's a huge distance between this high and this high, but this one to this one is actually slowed down. So which means then that this has to make a substantial higher high for us to have the risk to reward there. So this means then I am risking 1% to make 0.8%. Okay, for it to before it makes a higher high. So that means for me then this trade wouldn't be something that I would do. 3 nines is 27. So Tyson is shorting that. I assume you're shorting it off that level. If I zoom out. That's a 79 level. There's nothing really through this top one up here, so just see which one it is. So this top one here just has that double top there, or that 2 bounces. Did you have divergence taking it? So it's not something that I would take at that particular scenario at that point. Why? Because for me, the overall trend is going up, so it's not something I would look to take here. So go with the trend. Now, if we get a pullback into this here, then potentially looking for it to buy. But again, how far is this phase 2 going to come back? If you stick a Fibonacci on this, so there's the phase 1, phase 2. So there's the beginning of the next phase 1. And if I stick a fib on this, up to there, we would expect the minimum pullback to about this way every year. So that's where I would expect the minimum pullback to that point there. It may very easily come back to the 61.8 here. But between the 38.2 and the 61.8, they're the between the two levels that we'd expect this to come back to. So there is some room for this to continue dropping. There is potential momentum for this to go, okay? But it's one of those things that we need to sort of keep an eye on. But if it got back to somewhere around there, there's a potential buy. But the problem is that I don't have a horizontal level. I don't have anything there to give it a bounce for me. So for that reason, it's not a short for me. Why? Because I'm going counter trend. And then two, if it come back down into this level, which is 38, where we'd expect it to come back down, looking at this overall momentum, mathematical formula would expect it to come back to somewhere around here to 38 as a minimum. It's not a trade I'll be looking to take. And then Euro CHF. So strangely enough, Euro has got a little bit of strength out of her. Strangely enough, Euro has had a little bit of strength. And we talked about this potential trade here being a break and retest. We have that high test bar there. And today, if you'd have taken it, you would have been stopped out. You would have been stopped out if you'd have taken that one. But we have now come back into that level. Now, with that being said, we have to sort of look at the other euro pairs. So we have to have a look at the other euro pairs. I don't actually, bear with me. Let me have a quick look at the matrix that we done on Sunday. Close. And based on what we did yesterday, based on what we did on Sunday, Euro is one of the weakest currencies out there. Now, the problem with the likes of the matrix is that it's a week old, so it's using last week's data. So it looks like Euro and GBP are the two weakest currencies out there, and Aussie and NZD are the two strongest. But what we've seen today and the last couple of days is that we're seeing a little bit of Euro strength, aren't we? So the question is how long are we going to see this continue for? Is this only momentary? Is it only for a couple of days? And if we think that this is going to continue, how do we trade this? So if we think this is going to continue and this is that change of direction, we now need to drop down into the smaller time frame and have a look at the 4 hour. And if we look at the 4 hour here, we're seeing really nice cyclicity, aren't we? So we're seeing the phase one here, the phase two, and now the phase one. So for us to trade this, this is all that has to happen. That this phase one continues and then comes back into that level there. So look at that bounce. Look at that bounce. All we need is some sort of rejection there, retest, and then we'd look to take that long. So this could be the very beginning of that. Now, some of you might say, well, Henry, there's an inverse head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder, there's the head, and there's the right shoulder. There's the neckline through here. You might say that. There's the neckline. And we've just broken the neckline here. Could I argue that? No, I couldn't argue against that because that's what we have there. We do have that inverse head and shoulders. But the problem is that trend generally continues and the overall trend here is down. Okay, so, but keep an eye on this because this could be the beginning of a little upward momentum on euro. What I would check is to see, is euro getting stronger against all the other ones? Or is it just CHF weakness? Let's have a quick look. So look, euro is getting stronger against GBP. Is euro getting stronger against dollar? Not really. It's pretty flat. Hasn't really moved, or sorry, against CAD. Hasn't really moved anywhere. That sort of cancels each other out for me. Euro Aussie, look, euro is getting stronger in Aussie over the last couple of days. Euro NZD, pretty flat, but overall it's still a little bit stronger than NZD. Euro JPY, look, euro is much stronger than JPY. So in that sense, we would expect euro to sort of continue. Euro looks pretty strong over the last sort of five or six trading days. So we'd expect that to continue. So there might be a few nice little trades on the smaller time frame. So a couple of people asked me for other stuff. Can we have a look at China? Oil, gold, Terra and Luna. Let me have a look at gold and silver when we're here on this. So silver. So we can see silver has now come back into sort of this area. So we've had one touch, two touches, and we're in that area, and we're looking for this to retest here and then take off to the upside. But if we look at this here today, it hasn't done that. We look at this, today's bar looks like it's going to break this level. Now, today's bar hasn't finished. So just remember that today's bar hasn't finished. So we actually may see, depending on how this bar finishes, we might actually see this happen. So if silver happened like that, would you take that trade? But again, it is subjective to how that bar finishes. But okay, so everyone and most people said yes. Okay, so you're looking, yes is the answer to this. Okay, so just say the bar finishes like this right now. So just say the bar finishes as it is. Would you take that as a trade? Yes or no? So would you think that it will turn around now? Yes or no? Okay, some people said I'd rather close above the bar or above that level. But again, is that level perfect? Could be slightly lower, could be slightly higher. Look, it's bounced off this here, so we could have a zone. So the problem with looking at price action is that it can be depending on your charting software. It can come down to how your charting software sees it. Okay, so could be down to the time of the day that your charting software closes at. But again, is this a good area to potentially buy? Yes, it is. A long position. Whether this bar finishes like this or it doesn't, it's still in a good position. That's the point I'm trying to get across here. The only difference is that if we get triggered in, up here, we've had a pretty big movement already to the upside for us to get triggered in. So that in itself is pretty good confirmation. For us to hit this high is here 3% is a 2 to 1 to hit this high. So there is a bit of risk to reward there. So is that trade there still valid? Yes, if that bar finishes like that. But what would stop me from taking this trade is if this happens. This is what would stop me taking this trade, is that if this bar finished down there, and that was a big red bar, that's what would stop me from taking that trade. If the open and the close finished down here, that'd be stopped. That would be something that I wouldn't be looking at. But if it stays the way it is today, there is a potential trade on that, entry there, stop loss there, and a 1-to-1 here. But also remember, on silver, we have loads of room to go to get to these highs here. Loads of room to go. But if we pop over onto gold, we don't have huge amounts of room to hit this high. Also, something that's quite nice is that we didn't get triggered in on this last trade here. Look, they continued going. So we didn't get triggered in, and it's come back into this level here. So let's have a quick look at that level. So we have a rejection here. Not massive, not anything there anytime soon. So you have to go back further to get that. So we have a rejection there at this level here at the 1914. We wanted this to come back to this level. It went up higher and then come back to this level. So remove. So is that trade there valid? At that particular point. And that's the beauty of the limit of the stop orders, that sometimes when we're wrong, that we don't get triggered in.